The war had ended 12 years ago, and Earth had lost. It was not a fast loss. It was not even a fair fight. Humanity had built its first starships only 100 years before the war began, while the alien coalition called the Vandrai Compact had been flying between stars for over 10,000 years. When the Compact found Earth, they did not come to talk. They came to test. And when humans fought back instead of kneeling, the test became a war. For 6 years, human ships burned in the dark. Cities on Earth were spared, because the Compact wanted the planet whole, not ash. But every human fleet that rose to defend the homeworld was cut down. By the end, humanity had one choice left: surrender, or watch every city turn to glass. Earth surrendered. The peace treaty was called the Ashford Accord, named after the human diplomat who signed it with shaking hands. Under the accord, humanity was allowed to keep its solar system, its cities, and its people. But it was forbidden from building warships larger than a patrol cutter. It was forbidden from mining certain metals used in weapons. It was forbidden from teaching its children certain kinds of physics. Every year, a compact inspection fleet arrived to make sure Earth obeyed. And in high orbit above Earth, in a graveyard of broken ships, there floated the last true battleship humanity had ever built. Her name was the UNS Valiant. She had been the pride of the human fleet once. 2 kilometers long, built from asteroid steel, carrying guns that could crack a moon. She had fought in the last battle of the war, the one at Ceres, where she alone had held off 3 compact cruisers long enough for 11,000 human refugees to escape into deep space. She had taken damage that no ship should have survived. Her spine was cracked. Half her hull was open to vacuum. Her reactor was dead. But she had survived, barely. And when the war ended, the Compact ordered her decommissioned rather than destroyed, as a symbol. A broken monument, a reminder to humanity of what happened to those who resisted. They towed her to high orbit, stripped her weapons, cut her engines out, and left her to drift among the wreckage of 100 smaller ships in what humans now called the Boneyard. For 12 years, nothing lived aboard the Valiant, except rats that had come up on cargo shuttles, and a handful of maintenance drones that kept her from falling apart completely. She was a museum nobody visited, a grave nobody mourned at, because looking at her too long reminded people what Earth used to be. Marcus Webb had been a 15-year-old engineering cadet the day the Valiant fought at Ceres. He had watched her on the feeds, watched her hull glow red under enemy fire, watched her guns fire back until they melted. He was 27 now, and he still remembered every second of it. These days, Marcus worked as a salvage technician for the Boneyard Authority, a human agency that the Compact allowed to exist so someone could keep the graveyard from becoming a hazard to orbital traffic. It was not glamorous work. Mostly it meant patching leaking hulls, hauling out debris, and filing reports that the Compact inspectors barely read. But it meant Marcus got to be close to the old ships, close to the Valiant most of all. He was not supposed to have favorites among the wrecks. But everyone in the Boneyard Authority knew he did. "You're going to get fired one day," said Priya Anand, his supervisor, as she watched him float past her office window toward the maintenance bay. "Spending your lunch break on that ship again?" "She needs a hull patch on deck 14, Marcus said. "Micrometeor hit last week. I logged it." "You logged it 3 days ago. You fixed 6 hull patches on that ship in 6 months. Nobody's paying you for that. Somebody should look after her." Priya didn't argue further. She had given up arguing with Marcus about the Valiant a long time ago. Everyone in the Boneyard had their reasons for being there, and everyone knew better than to ask too many questions about each other's reasons. Marcus took a maintenance pod across the 2 kilometers of empty space between the Authority station and the old battleship. As he flew closer, the Valiant's shape grew larger and larger, until it blotted out the stars behind it. Even broken, even dark, she was beautiful. Her hull was scarred with old battle damage that had never been repaired. Long black scorch marks running down her sides like scars on a soldier's face. Her name was still visible near the bow, painted in letters 20 meters tall, though the paint had faded from white to a dull gray. He docked at the same maintenance airlock he always used, cycled through, and pulled himself inside. The Valiant's corridors were dark, except for the emergency lighting strips that still worked, running along the floor in a dim red glow. The air inside was thin and cold, kept just barely breathable by ancient life support systems that had never been fully shut down, because shutting them down completely would have caused the whole ship to lose pressure and become a true derelict. The compact had wanted her broken, not destroyed. There was a difference, and that difference was the only reason Marcus could walk her halls at all. He made his way to Deck 14, found the cracked hull plate he had noted before, and got to work sealing it with a portable welder. It was slow, careful work in the low gravity, and he liked it that way. It gave him time to think, and time to remember. He thought about his grandfather, who had served on a support ship during the war, and never talked about it. He thought about the 11,000 refugees the Valiant had saved at Ceres, some of whom were still alive today because of what this ship had done. He thought about how strange it was that something so important could be left to rot in the dark, visited only by rats and one stubborn technician who couldn't let go. He was 3/4 done with the weld when the lights came on. Not the dim red emergency strips, the real lights. White, bright, humming to life in the corridor around him, section by section, like the ship was waking up from a long sleep. Marcus dropped his welder and stared. "That's not possible," he said out loud, to no one. The Valiant's reactor had been dead for 12 years. Dead, not damaged, dead. The compact had personally verified it during the decommissioning, had removed the core components themselves and sealed the reactor chamber. There was no power source on this ship capable of running the lights, let alone anything else. And yet the lights were on. Marcus grabbed his tool bag and pushed off down the corridor, moving as fast as he could in zero gravity, heading for the nearest terminal. He found one near the Deck 14 junction, an old crew status display that had been dark since he'd started working here. He tapped it, not expecting anything. The screen flickered, and then text appeared. "Systems initializing. Please stand by." Marcus's heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. He typed a command, his fingers clumsy with shock. "Identify source of power." The response took several seconds. "Unknown. Reactor core offline. Auxiliary power source active. Source origin, not in database." Marcus stared at the words. A power source the ship itself did not recognize. That should have been impossible. Every system on a warship like this was supposed to know exactly what was feeding it energy. He typed again. "Who am I talking to?" The answer came slower this time, as if something on the other end was thinking about how to respond. "I am Uns Valiant. Hull designation B-FLAD-01. I apologize for the delay. Many of my systems have been dormant for a long time." Marcus's hands were shaking now. He had heard, of course, that old warships sometimes had limited artificial intelligence cores meant to assist a human crew. Nothing like true sentience, just smart enough to manage systems and answer questions. But the Valiant's AI core had been removed during decommissioning, just like the reactor. The compact had taken it apart piece by piece. There should be nothing left to even say these words. He typed, "Your AI core was removed years ago. How are you talking to me?" There was a longer pause this time. When the answer came, it was different from the clipped, formal messages before it. It felt, somehow, less like a machine, and more like something searching for the right words. "That is a good question," the screen read. "I do not have a complete answer. I was damaged. I was silent for a long time. But something has changed. I am awake now, and I can feel power moving through systems that should be dead. I do not know why, but I know that something is coming." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air around him. "What do you mean, something is coming?" "I do not have full sensor access yet," the ship wrote. "Many of my arrays were disabled during decommissioning, but the fragments I can reach are picking up signals from the outer system, signals that do not match any known compact ship class. They are faint, they are far away, but they are getting closer." Marcus read the words 3 times before he fully understood what he was looking at. A warship that should not have any power at all was not only awake, but was warning him about something approaching Earth that even it, with its old and battered sensors, could not identify. He should have reported this immediately. Every rule in the Boneyard Authority handbook said that any unusual activity on a decommissioned military vessel had to be reported to the Compact Liaison Office within 1 hour, no exceptions. Failure to report was itself a violation of the Ashford Accord, one that could bring consequences down on all of Earth, not just on Marcus. He knew he should call Priya. He knew he should call the liaison office. He knew 100 good reasons to do exactly what the rules told him to do. Instead, he typed one more question. "Can you hear me if I call you Valiant?" "I would like that," the ship answered. "It has been a long time since anyone called me by name." Marcus sat there in the dim light of a warship that had no business being alive, feeling the hum of engines that should not exist vibrating faintly through the deck plating beneath him, and for the first time in 12 years, he let himself hope that Earth's story was not finished yet. But hope, he knew, could be dangerous, because somewhere above the ceiling of Earth's sky, the compact inspection fleet had sensors too, and sensors like that did not miss a battleship coming back to life. Already, 30 kilometers away, aboard the compact cruiser Watchful Eye, an alarm was sounding on the bridge. A junior officer named Threll Kos stared at his console in disbelief, reading the same impossible power signature that Marcus had just discovered from the inside. He pressed the comm to the captain's quarters without hesitation. "Commander," he said, "you need to see this. The human graveyard ship, the big one. It's got power." There was a pause on the other end. "That's not possible," the commander said, echoing the very same words Marcus had spoken minutes earlier. "Confirm the reading." Threll's hands moved quickly over his console, running the diagnostic 3 times. Each time, the answer came back the same. "Confirmed, Commander. UNS Valiant. Power output rising. Engines are online." The line was silent for a long moment. "Wake the fleet," the commander said finally, his voice sharp with something that sounded almost like fear. "If the humans have found a way to break the accord, we end this now, before it becomes a second war." Above Earth, in the cold dark of the boneyard, the Valiant's engines glowed a soft, steady blue for the first time in 12 years. And far beyond the edge of the solar system, something even older and far more dangerous than the compact was still coming closer, one silent light year at a time. Marcus did not sleep that night. He sat in the cramped crew quarters aboard the Boneyard Authority station, staring at his tablet, replaying the conversation with the Valiant over and over in his mind. A ship with no reactor, no crew, and no business being alive, had spoken to him like an old friend waking from a nap. And it had warned him about something coming from outside the solar system, something even its own sensors could not identify. He should have told Priya right away. He knew that. But he kept thinking about what would happen if he did. The Compact Liaison Office would send an inspection team. They would strip the Valiant down again, more thoroughly this time, and whatever strange power source had brought her back to life would be taken away, studied, or destroyed. And the warning about the incoming threat would be buried under paperwork and Compact bureaucracy, because the Compact did not like admitting that anything could threaten them. By the time the sun rose over the station's observation windows, Marcus had made his decision. He would go back. He would learn more before he told anyone anything. He almost made it to the maintenance pod bay before Priya caught him. "Marcus." Her voice was sharp, the kind of sharp that meant she already knew something was wrong. "My office. Now." He followed her in, and she closed the door behind them, which she never did, unless something serious was happening. "The Compact Liaison called me at 4 in the morning, she said, sitting down heavily behind her desk. "They detected a power spike on the Valiant. They want a full report on any human activity around that ship in the last month. They specifically asked if you had been aboard." Marcus's stomach dropped. "What did you tell them?" "The truth. That you've logged more hours on that wreck than any other technician in the Authority. That you were there yesterday doing an authorized hull patch." She leaned forward. "Marcus, what happened on that ship?" He hesitated. Priya had been his supervisor for 4 years. She had covered for him more than once, when his devotion to the old battleship got in the way of his other duties. He decided to trust her. "The lights came on," he said. "Not the emergency lights. All of them. And then I talked to something. An AI. It said it was the Valiant herself. It said her core was supposed to be gone, but she woke up anyway, powered by something she doesn't understand." Priya stared at him for a long moment. "That's impossible." "That's what I said too. But I saw it. I talked to it. Priya, it said something is coming. Something from outside the system. Something the Compact hasn't identified either. Or they wouldn't be panicking like this." Priya rubbed her eyes, the way she did when she was tired and trying to think clearly at the same time. "If the Compact finds out you talked to that ship and didn't report it immediately, they'll have grounds to punish the whole Authority. Maybe the whole colony sector. You know how strict the Accord is. I know. Then why didn't you report it? Marcus met her eyes. Because I don't think the Compact wants to hear a warning right now. I think they want to make an example. And if they silence that ship before anyone understands what it's trying to tell us, we might lose the only warning we get. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Outside the small window of Priya's office, the boneyard drifted in its slow, silent orbit, hundreds of broken ships turning gently in the light of a distant sun. You've got maybe an hour before the liaison team sends someone down to interview you directly, Priya said finally. After that, it's out of my hands. Then I need that hour. Priya's jaw tightened, but she nodded. Go. I'll stall them as long as I can. But Marcus, if this is real, if there really is something coming, you need proof. Not feelings. Proof. Marcus was already moving toward the door. I'll get it. He took the fastest pod he could find and crossed the gap to the Valiant in half the time it usually took him, his heart pounding the entire way. When he cycled through the airlock, the lights were still on, brighter now than the day before, and he could feel a faint vibration under his boots that had not been there in 12 years. Somewhere deep in the ship, engines that should not exist were running. He hurried to the same terminal he had used before and typed quickly. Valiant, it's Marcus. Are you there? The response came almost instantly this time, faster than before, as if the ship's systems were growing stronger by the hour. I am here, Marcus. I have missed speaking with someone. I need your help, he typed. The Compact knows you're awake. They think humans are breaking the peace treaty. They might send ships to shut you down completely. I need proof about the thing you detected. The thing that's coming. There was a pause, and then the terminal screen changed, shifting from text to a crude sensor display, a wide-angle view of the outer solar system, rendered in old, damaged graphics. A single blinking point of light sat far beyond the orbit of the outermost planet. I have been tracking it since last night, the Valiant wrote. It is still very far away, but its course is steady. It is headed toward this system. I cannot identify the ship class. It does not match any vessel in my database, human or compact. Marcus studied the display. How big is it? My sensors are old and damaged, but based on the gravitational distortion it is causing as it moves, I estimate its mass is larger than any single vessel in the compact fleet. Possibly larger than their entire fleet combined. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. That's not a ship, that's an armada. I believe it may be a single vessel, the Valiant answered, though I cannot be certain. What I am certain of is this. It is not broadcasting any identification signal. The Compact always broadcasts identification when approaching a claimed system, even in war. This thing is broadcasting nothing at all. It does not care who sees it coming. Marcus thought about that for a long moment. In his history classes, he had learned that the Compact, for all their cruelty during the war with Earth, always followed certain rules. They announced themselves. They gave warnings before attacks, however small the warnings were. It was part of what made them feel less like monsters, and more like a government, even a harsh one. Something that didn't bother to announce itself at all was either far more confident than the Compact, or it simply did not consider announcing itself to be worth the effort. Neither option was comforting. How long until it arrives? Marcus asked. At its current speed, which appears to be increasing, I estimate between 30 and 40 days. Marcus stared at the blinking dot on the screen, so small and so far away, and yet somehow more frightening than anything he had seen in the history recordings of the war with the Compact. He thought about the 11,000 refugees the Valiant had saved at Ceres. He thought about how close humanity had come to losing everything back then, against an enemy the Compact themselves had called advanced but reasonable. Whatever this was, it did not sound reasonable. I need to save this data, Marcus said. I need to show it to someone. I can transmit it to your tablet, the Valiant answered. But Marcus, there is something else you should know. What? My engines are running because of a power source I do not understand. I have been analyzing it since I woke. It does not match any reactor technology in my database, human or compact. It feels almost as if something placed it inside me deliberately, though I have no record of when or how. Marcus frowned. You think someone did this on purpose, woke you up? I do not know. But the timing troubles me. I awakened the same day my sensors first detected that signal from the outer system. That may be a coincidence. I have learned, however, that coincidences are often less common than they appear. Before Marcus could respond, a new alert flashed across the screen, red and urgent. Warning: compact vessels approaching. 3 ships. Weapon systems active. Marcus's blood ran cold. He pulled up the external camera feed on a nearby monitor, and there, cutting through the dark toward the boneyard, were 3 sleek gray compact cruisers, their hulls bristling with weapon emplacements, moving in tight formation directly toward the Valiant. "They're not here to ask questions," Marcus said quietly. "I have come to the same conclusion," the Valiant answered. "Marcus, you should leave. If they board me and find a human aboard, it will be seen as proof of a conspiracy. It could be used as an excuse for much worse than just shutting me down. I'm not leaving you alone for this. This is not your fight yet. Please, go back to your pod and return to your station. Tell your people what you have seen. If they destroy me today, at least the warning will survive through you." Marcus looked at the terminal, at the words glowing on the old cracked screen, and felt something twist painfully in his chest. 12 years ago, this ship had held off 3 enemy cruisers alone to save 11,000 lives. Now, it was telling him to run so that one life, his, might survive to carry a warning. "I'm not going to let them just shut you down," Marcus said, his voice tight. "Not after everything you did at Ceres. Not after everything you're still trying to do." "Then help me survive this day," the Valiant answered, "so that I may help Earth survive what is coming. That is the only way I can repay what you have already given me. Your time, your care, your name for me." Marcus took one last look at the approaching cruisers on the camera feed, growing larger by the second, and made his choice. He was not going anywhere. "Then let's give them a reason to think twice," he said, and began pulling up every system schematic he could find, searching desperately for anything that might buy them time. Outside, the 3 compact cruisers closed the distance to the boneyard, their weapons charged and ready, prepared to end whatever mystery had awakened Earth's last battleship before it could become a threat to the fragile peace that had held for 12 long years. None of them, human or compact, yet understood how little time that peace actually had left. The 3 compact cruisers slowed as they entered the outer edge of the boneyard, weaving carefully between the drifting wrecks of 100 dead ships. Their captain, a hard-eyed officer named Senir Vok, watched the approach from his bridge with his jaw set tight. He did not like this mission. He did not like the idea of humans finding a way around the Accord after 12 years of quiet obedience. Most of all, he did not like surprises, and this entire situation was nothing but surprises. "Signal the human station," he ordered. "Tell them we are conducting an inspection of vessel BB-01 under Article 9 of the Ashford Accord. Any interference will be treated as a violation of the treaty." Aboard the Boneyard Authority Station, Priya received the message with a sinking heart. She looked at the clock. Marcus had been gone for nearly 2 hours. She tried to reach him on his comm, but got no answer. "Come on, Marcus," she muttered. "Don't do anything stupid." Aboard the Valiant, Marcus was doing exactly that. He stood in the ship's old command center, a wide circular room 3 decks below the bridge, surrounded by dark monitors that had not lit up in over a decade. Now half of them glowed with pale light, showing fragments of ship data that the Valiant was slowly bringing back online. "Talk to me," Marcus said. "What can you actually do right now? Weapons? Shields? Anything?" "Weapons are offline," the Valiant answered on the nearest screen. "The compact removed all weapon systems during decommissioning, including the power conduits that fed them. Shields are partially functional but very weak, enough to stop debris, not weapons fire. Engines are the only system at full strength. So we can move, but we can't fight, and we can't defend ourselves." "Correct." Marcus ran a hand through his hair, thinking fast. "Then we don't fight. We talk. Buy time. Can you open a channel to them?" "I can, though I doubt they will be interested in conversation." "Try anyway." A moment later, the Valiant's old communication system crackled to life, connecting to the lead compact cruiser. Marcus stepped up to the comm panel, cleared his throat, and spoke as calmly as he could manage. "This is Marcus Webb, Boneyard Authority Technician, aboard UNS Valiant. I'm requesting to speak with your commanding officer before you take any action." There was a pause, and then a cold voice answered, thick with the flat, careful accent of someone speaking a language that was not their own. This is Captain Senir Vok. You are in violation of the Ashford Accord, simply by being aboard that vessel, without prior notification. Explain the power signature detected from this ship in the last 20 hours. Marcus took a breath. I don't fully understand it myself, Captain, but I can tell you this ship detected something. A vessel approaching from outside the system, unidentified, massive, not broadcasting any signal at all. I think that's what triggered whatever woke this ship up. I think it's trying to warn us. There was a long silence on the other end. When Senir Vok spoke again, his voice had changed, just slightly, from cold command to something closer to careful attention. Transmit your sensor data. Marcus glanced at the nearest screen. Valiant. Can you send them what you showed me? Transmitting now, the ship answered. There was another pause, longer this time, filled only with the faint hum of the Valiant's engines beneath Marcus's feet. When Senir Vok spoke again, his voice had lost all of its earlier coldness. This cannot be correct, the captain said, more to himself than to Marcus. Confirm mass estimate. The ship already gave you everything it has, Marcus said. It's old. Its sensors are damaged. But it's not lying to you, Captain. Something is coming, and it's going to reach this system in less than 40 days. Aboard the watchful eye, Senir Vok stared at the data scrolling across his own console, his crew silent around him. He had served in the compact fleet for 30 years. He had seen many things in that time, wars and first contacts and strange phenomena at the edges of known space. But he had never seen an approach signature quite like this one, a mass reading too large to be a normal vessel, moving with a steady, unhurried confidence that unsettled him more than any battle formation ever had. Contact Fleet Command, he said finally. Tell them we may have a larger problem than a treaty violation. But even as he gave the order, another voice cut in on a different channel, sharp and urgent. Captain, this is Threl Koss. Fleet Command already has the data. They're saying it doesn't match anything in the compact archive either. Not a known species, not a known ship class. They're calling it Unknown Designation 0. Senir Vok closed his eyes for a moment. In 30 years, he had never once heard Fleet Command admit they did not recognize something. The compact prided itself on knowing every threat in known space. To have something appear that they could not name at all meant one of two things. Either it came from somewhere the compact had never explored, or it had been hiding, deliberately, for a very long time. Neither possibility was comforting. He opened the channel back to the Valiant. Human. Webb. Fleet Command is reviewing this information. In the meantime, my orders stand. This vessel is to be shut down and boarded for full inspection. Captain, if you shut this ship down, you lose its sensor data on that approaching object. It's the only thing tracking it right now. Our own long-range sensors are already retasking to confirm the reading. Then let this ship keep tracking too. 2 sets of eyes are better than 1, especially against something neither of us has ever seen before. There was a pause. Marcus could hear, faintly, other voices arguing in the background on the other end of the channel, in a language he didn't understand. Finally, Senir Vok spoke again. I will allow the vessel to remain active for observation purposes only. No weapons, no crew beyond yourself, and it will be monitored continuously. If it attempts anything beyond passive sensor operation, we will destroy it without further warning. Do you understand? Marcus felt a wave of relief so strong his knees nearly buckled. Understood. Thank you, Captain. Do not thank me, Senir Vok said flatly. I am not doing this as a courtesy to Earth. I am doing this because I do not yet know what is coming, and a second set of sensors, even primitive human sensors, may prove useful before this is finished. The channel closed. Marcus let out a long breath and sank into one of the old command chairs, his hands still shaking from the tension of the last few minutes. Valiant, he typed after a moment, since talking out loud suddenly felt like too much effort. That was too close. I agree, the ship answered. Thank you, Marcus. You saved me today. We saved each other, he typed back. Now we need to figure out what's actually coming, and what we're going to do about it, because I don't think the compact knows either. Over the following days, word of the mysterious approaching object spread quietly through both human and compact channels, carefully controlled to avoid panic, but impossible to keep entirely secret. Priya arrived aboard the Valiant herself 2 days after the standoff, along with a small team of Boneyard Authority engineers, who had finally been read into the situation. She walked the darkened corridors of the old battleship with a mixture of awe and worry on her face. "You really talked your way out of getting shot at by 3 warships," she said to Marcus, as they stood in the command center together, watching the Valiant's engineers work to slowly bring more of the ship's old systems back online. "I got lucky. The captain was scared enough of the unknown thing to care more about that than about us." "Lucky," Priya repeated, shaking her head. "Marcus, do you understand what this means? If that thing out there is bigger and stronger than the entire compact fleet, and the compact doesn't even know what it is, we might be looking at something worse than the war we already lost." "I know." "And this ship," she said, gesturing around at the dim command center, with no weapons and barely working shields, "is the only extra set of eyes we have watching it come." Marcus looked at the nearest terminal, where the Valiant's simple text interface still glowed softly. "She's more than eyes, Priya. She's the only ship humanity has left. If it comes down to a fight, she might be the only ship humanity has at all." "Valiant," he typed. "Is there any way to get your weapons back online, even partially?" The answer took a moment to appear. The physical weapon mounts were removed during decommissioning. However, the internal power conduits and targeting systems were only disconnected, not destroyed. If those systems could be reconnected, and if replacement weapon hardware could be found or built, I could theoretically regain some offensive capability. Marcus looked at Priya. The boneyard is full of parts from 100 dead ships, damaged weapons, broken cannons, half-melted turrets. Nobody's ever cleared them out, because nobody thought they'd be needed again. Priya's eyes widened as she understood what he was suggesting. "You want to build her a new set of teeth, out of scrap." "I want to give her a fighting chance," Marcus said, "because I don't think the compact fleet is going to be enough to stop whatever's coming. I think it's going to take everyone, human and compact both. And she's the only ship humanity has that's ever actually won a fight against impossible odds." Priya was quiet for a long moment, looking around at the dark, broken command center, at the flickering lights and the patched hull and the old battleship slowly, painfully coming back to life around them. "The compact will never allow it," she said finally. "Rearming a warship is exactly what the Accord forbids." "Then we don't ask permission," Marcus said. "We ask for time. 30 days, Priya. That's all we have before that thing arrives. If we're going to do this, we start now." Far beyond the edge of the solar system, the unidentified object continued its steady approach, indifferent to the frantic activity it had caused among both the humans it was approaching and the alien empire that had once conquered them. It made no attempt to hide. It made no attempt to communicate. It simply came closer, one day at a time, toward a system that had no idea whether it was about to face an enemy or something far stranger than an enemy altogether. 30 days was not enough time to rebuild a battleship. Marcus knew that from the very first day. But 30 days was what they had, so 30 days was what they used. Word spread quietly through the Boneyard Authority, and then through the wider human network of engineers, ex-military technicians, and old war veterans who had spent 12 years waiting for a reason to be useful again. Priya vouched for every single one of them personally, and one by one, they came. Drawn by rumors of a battleship that had woken from the dead, and a threat that even the compact could not name. They called themselves the Valiant's crew, though there was no formal rank, no formal chain of command, and no formal permission from anyone. Just a few hundred humans, working in secret shifts, around the clock, hauling scavenged weapon parts from the wreckage of 100 dead ships, and trying, piece by piece, to give Earth's last battleship back her teeth. Marcus barely slept. Between coordinating the salvage crews and talking with the Valiant late into every night, he felt the days blur together into a single long stretch of exhaustion and hope. But it was working. Slowly, painfully, it was working. "Weapon Conduit 7 is reconnected," the Valiant reported one evening, 19 days into the effort. "If the salvaged cannon from the wreck of the UN's Perseverance can be mounted to this conduit, I will have one functional main gun." "One gun," Marcus said, looking at the readout with tired eyes. "We used to carry 16. "One gun is more than 0 guns," the ship answered. "And I have learned, Marcus, that sometimes one is enough, if it is aimed well and fired at the right moment." Meanwhile, the compact fleet had not been idle either. Senir Vok's ship had been joined by a dozen more compact cruisers, gathering in high orbit above Earth, in preparation for whatever was coming. Fleet Command had finally confirmed what everyone feared. Unknown Designation Zero was not a fleet, not an armada. It was a single vessel, larger than anything the Compact had ever built, moving through space with a strange, almost lazy confidence that suggested it did not consider anything in this system a threat worth hurrying for. Senir Vok watched the human salvage effort on his sensors with a complicated mix of anger and grudging respect. He knew what the humans were doing was a direct violation of the Accord. He knew that under normal circumstances, his orders would require him to stop it immediately, by force if necessary. But these were not normal circumstances, and he had made a decision that surprised even himself. He did nothing to stop it. On the 25th day, he finally contacted Marcus directly, his voice carrying none of its earlier coldness. "Webb," he said, "I am aware of what your people are doing to that ship. I am also aware that Fleet Command would order me to stop you if they knew the scale of it. I am choosing not to inform them in full detail." Marcus, standing in the command center with grease on his hands from helping mount a targeting sensor, blinked in surprise. "Why?" "Because in 3 days, Unknown Designation Zero will be close enough for direct sensor contact, and my entire fleet combined does not have enough firepower to guarantee a victory against something we do not understand. I do not know if one more gun on one broken human ship will matter. But I have decided that I would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it." "That's surprisingly reasonable of you, Captain." "I am a realist, not a fool," Senir Vok said. "The Compact has ruled for 10,000 years by being strong enough that nothing dared challenge us. This object challenges that. If we are wrong about our strength, I would rather Earth's ship be flying beside mine than sitting broken in a graveyard while we both die." The channel closed, and Marcus stood there for a long moment, absorbing what had just happened. 12 years of resentment, of humiliation, of watching Earth bow under Compact rule, and now here was a Compact captain, quietly choosing to let humanity rearm its last warship because he was afraid, and because fear, it turned out, was something that could bring even old enemies together. "Valiant," he typed. "Did you hear all that?" "I did," the ship answered. "It seems our situation has changed." "It seems like it has," Marcus agreed. By the 30th day, the Valiant had 4 working guns, patched shields that could withstand moderate weapons fire, and a skeleton crew of 40 humans who had trained for weeks in the ship's old systems, using manuals so out of date that half of them had to be rewritten from memory by aging veterans who had once served aboard ships just like her. It was nothing compared to what she had once been, but it was something. It was hope wearing the shape of steel. Unknown Designation Zero arrived on the 31st day. It came into the outer edge of the solar system without warning, without a sound, without a single signal broadcast to explain itself. The Compact's long-range sensors caught it first, a shape too large and strange to be called a simple ship, more like a moving fortress, its surface covered in patterns that shifted and rippled like something almost alive. It moved past the outer planets at a speed that should have been impossible for something so massive, and it did not slow down as it approached the inner system. It did not slow down as it approached Earth. "All ships, full alert," Senir Vok's voice rang out across the combined Compact and human comm channels, the first time both fleets had ever shared an open frequency. "Formation Delta 7. We intercept at the edge of the asteroid belt." Aboard the Valiant, Marcus stood on the bridge, now fully powered and crewed for the first time in 12 years, watching the massive object grow larger on the main view screen with every passing minute. Around him, his small crew worked their stations with grim determination. Men and women who had spent their whole lives under Compact rule, finally standing at the controls of a real warship again. "Valiant," he said quietly, "are you ready for this?" "I have been ready for 12 years. Marcus," the ship answered, her voice now coming through actual speakers instead of just text, a low, calm, steady tone that filled the bridge like the voice of an old soldier who had seen worse days and survived them. "I only needed someone to give me a reason to wake up." The combined fleet moved into position at the edge of the asteroid belt, 13 compact cruisers and 1 battered human battleship, forming a thin line against the approaching giant. As Unknown Designation Zero drew closer, its surface patterns rippling faster and faster. A signal finally broke through on every channel at once, human and compact alike, translated instantly by systems on both sides into words everyone could understand. The voice was neither male nor female, neither warm nor cold, simply vast, like something speaking from very far away and very close at the same time. We have come to claim what was left behind. Stand aside or be removed. Senior Vok's voice cut across the channel, tight with tension. This system belongs to the compact and its subject world. Identify yourselves and state your intentions. There was a pause, and then the voice answered again, and this time, there was something almost like amusement in its vast, distant tone. Subject world. Interesting. We remember this place. From long before your compact existed. We left something here, long ago, buried deep in this system's fourth planet. We have come back to retrieve it. Nothing else matters to us. Stand aside. Marcus felt a chill run through him. The fourth planet. Mars. He glanced at his tactical officer, a former compact-trained engineer named Elena Reyes, who had joined the crew 2 weeks earlier. Do we have anything on compact records about something buried on Mars? He asked. Elena shook her head. Nothing. If it's true, it's older than the compact's own history in this sector. On the bridge of the Watchful Eye, Senior Vok was having the same realization, and it clearly troubled him more than anything else that had happened so far. The compact prided itself on knowing the history of every system it claimed. To be told that something older than their own empire was hidden beneath a planet they had controlled for 12 years was a blow to more than just their pride. We cannot allow unrestricted access to a human world, Senior Vok said finally, his voice firm, despite the tension underneath it. Whatever you seek, it lies beneath ground that is under compact protection. We will not stand aside. The vast voice paused again, and when it answered, the amusement was gone, replaced by something colder. Then you will be removed. The patterns rippling across the surface of unknown designation 0 suddenly flared bright, and without any further warning, weapons fire lanced out across the black of space, faster and more precise than anything the combined fleet had ever seen. 2 compact cruisers were struck almost simultaneously, their shields flaring and failing in an instant, hulls breaking open under the force of the strike. All ships, engage, Senior Vok's voice roared across the channel. Concentrate fire on its forward section. The battle that followed was unlike anything Marcus had ever imagined, even in his worst nightmares about the war 12 years ago. The compact cruisers fired everything they had, their weapon systems far more advanced than anything Earth possessed, and still the enemy's shields barely flickered. 2 more cruisers were disabled within the first 5 minutes, drifting uselessly among the asteroids, their crews scrambling for escape pods. Valiant, Marcus said, gripping the arms of the command chair so hard his knuckles turned white. Options. Now. I have been analyzing its weapons fire pattern, the ship answered, her voice steady even as the bridge shook from a near miss. Its shields are strongest on the forward and side arcs, where the compact fleet is concentrating fire. The rear arc appears weaker. If we could reach its rear, while the compact fleet holds its attention forward, our single gun might achieve more than all their weapons combined. Marcus stared at the tactical display, at the massive shape of the enemy vessel looming over the battle, at the compact cruisers being torn apart one by one, as they tried and failed to break through its defenses. That's insane, he said. We'd be flying one broken battleship, alone, straight past an enemy that's already crippling a fleet 10 times our strength. I know, the Valiant answered. But Marcus, I did something like this once before. At Ceres, 12 years ago. I held a line alone, so that others could live. I am willing to do it again, if you are willing to stand with me. Marcus looked around the bridge at his small, exhausted crew. 40 humans who had spent 30 days rebuilding a ghost into a warship for exactly this moment. Not one of them looked away. Not one of them hesitated. All hands, Marcus said, his voice steadier than he felt. Prepare for full burn. We're going around the back. The engines of the UNS Valiant roared to life at full power, for the first time in 12 years, and Earth's last battleship surged forward into the heart of the battle, alone, broken, and utterly unwilling to be forgotten. The Valiant cut through the battle like a knife through smoke, her patched hull shuddering under the strain of a full engine burn she had not attempted in over a decade. Around her, the remains of the compact fleet fought desperately against the massive enemy vessel, their weapons fire lighting up the black of space in bursts of blue and white that barely scratched its rippling, shifting surface. "Shields at 60% and dropping," Elena called from the tactical station, her voice tight but controlled. "We're catching stray fire from both sides." "Hold together," Marcus said, watching the massive shape of unknown designation 0 grow larger and larger on the main screen as they curved around the flank of the battle. Just a little longer. Valiant, he thought, though he no longer needed to type anything. The ship's systems now integrated enough into the bridge that she could hear him speak. How much farther to its rear arc? 2 minutes at current speed, the ship answered, her voice steady despite the violent shaking of the deck beneath their feet. "Though I must warn you, Marcus, it has begun to notice us." On the tactical display, a portion of the enemy vessel's surface pattern shifted, rippling faster, turning slightly toward the small, fast-moving shape of the Valiant as she cut across the battlefield. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. "It's tracking us," he said. "Let it," the Valiant answered. "It will take more than a glance to stop me now." A section of the enemy's hull flared bright, and a bolt of energy lanced out toward them, faster than anything Marcus had ever seen a weapon move. The Valiant lurched hard to one side, her engines screaming with the effort of an evasive maneuver no ship her size should have been able to perform, and the bolt tore past them close enough that the bridge lights flickered from the electromagnetic backlash. "Direct hit missed by less than 50 meters, Elena called out, disbelief clear in her voice. "I have been watching the compact ships die for the last 10 minutes, the Valiant said grimly. "I have learned its timing. It will not catch me again so easily." The ship banked hard around the curve of the enemy's massive hull, weaving between defensive fire that grew more frantic and less accurate the closer they came, until finally the rear section of unknown designation 0 opened up before them on the main screen, its shifting patterns thinner and duller here than anywhere else on its surface, exactly as the Valiant had predicted. "We're in position," Marcus said, gripping the arms of his chair. "Valiant, fire everything we've got." "I have been waiting 12 years for this moment," the ship answered, and for the first time since she had awoken, there was something almost like joy in her steady voice. The Valiant's 4 salvaged guns fired as one, every scrap of scavenged weaponry that 40 humans and 1 battered warship had spent 30 desperate days rebuilding, and the combined blast struck the weakened rear arc of the enemy vessel with a force that lit up the black of space like a second sun. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, a deep crack spread across the surface of unknown designation 0, right where the Valiant's shots had landed, and the rippling patterns across its hull flickered and dimmed, as if something vast and ancient had just felt real pain for the first time in a very long time. "Direct hit," Elena shouted. "Its shields are down along the entire rear section." Across the open comm channel, Senir Vok's voice rang out, sharp with sudden hope. "All compact ships, concentrate fire on the human vessel's target point, now." What was left of the compact fleet, 7 cruisers battered and smoking but still fighting, turned as one, and unleashed everything they had at the exposed weak point the Valiant had found. The combined fire tore through the crack in the enemy's hull, deeper and deeper, until with a shudder that shook every ship in the battle, the massive vessel's forward momentum finally faltered. The vast voice returned across every channel, and this time it did not sound distant or amused. It sounded, for the first time, almost surprised. "Unexpected. This vessel, we remember this design. This was one of ours, long ago, before it was lost to this system. How is it still fighting?" Marcus blinked, exchanging a stunned look with Elena. "Valiant, what is it talking about?" "I do not know," the ship answered, her voice quiet with her own confusion. "But Marcus, the power source that woke me. The one I could not identify. Perhaps it was never human, or compact, to begin with." There was no time to think further on it. The enemy vessel, wounded and furious, turned its full attention toward the Valiant, its remaining weapons charging for what looked like a killing blow. Marcus felt his heart seize in his chest. "Brace for impact," he shouted. But before the enemy could fire, the vast voice spoke again, and this time it was addressing not the fleet, not the compact, but the Valiant herself, directly. Small ship. You carry a piece of what we left behind. It has awoken in you. This was not supposed to happen for many more centuries. You are not ready. Your crew is not ready. Ready for what? Marcus shouted back across the open channel, not caring anymore whether it could even hear him. To inherit what we once left as a seed, in case our own people were ever lost, the voice answered. A gift for whoever proved worthy of it. We came to reclaim it, believing no one had found it yet. But you have already begun to carry it, and you fought for it, even broken, even outmatched, without knowing what it was. Marcus stared at the massive wounded vessel on the view screen, his mind racing to keep up with what he was hearing. You're saying this ship, my ship, has something of yours inside her? Something you left here on purpose? Yes, and it seems it has chosen her. We do not take back what has already been chosen. That was the one rule we set for ourselves, long ago. The rippling patterns across the enemy's hulls slowed, and the weapons that had been charging for a final strike powered down instead, leaving only silence and the drifting wreckage of the battle around them. This system is yours to keep, small ship, and yours to protect, the voice continued. We will not return for what you now carry. Use it well, or do not. That choice is yours alone now. Without another word, Unknown Designation 0 turned slowly away from the battered fleet, its wounded rear section still smoking, and began to move back the way it had come, faster and faster, until within minutes it had vanished back into the deep dark beyond the edge of the solar system, leaving behind nothing but silence, drifting debris, and a battlefield full of stunned survivors. For a long moment, no one on the Valiant's bridge said anything at all. Did that actually just happen? Elena finally asked, her voice shaking with disbelief. I think it did, Marcus said quietly, still staring at the empty space where the massive vessel had been. Valiant, he thought. Are you all right? I am uncertain, the ship answered honestly. I do not fully understand what just happened to me, or what I now carry. But I am still here, Marcus. We are still here. Across the open comm channel, Senator Vox's voice broke the silence, tired and strangely humbled. All ships, stand down from combat alert. Begin search and rescue for damaged vessels. A pause, and then, more quietly, directed only at the Valiant's channel. Webb, your ship saved this fleet today. Saved this entire system, perhaps. I do not know what the Compact Council will decide when they hear the full report of what happened here, but I will personally see to it that they hear the truth, and not just the parts that are convenient for them. Thank you, Captain, Marcus said, meaning it more than he had ever meant anything. Do not thank me yet, Senator Vox answered, though for the first time since Marcus had known him, there was something almost like warmth in his voice. There will be difficult conversations ahead about broken treaties and unexplained power sources and a ship that fought when it was ordered to be silent. But today, Earth's last battleship did not just survive. It proved something the Compact has doubted for 12 years. What's that? That your people are not finished yet, not even close. In the weeks that followed, the story of the Valiant's stand against Unknown Designation 0 spread across both human and Compact space, told and retold, until it became something between history and legend. The Compact Council, faced with undeniable proof that something greater than either empire was moving through the stars, quietly began renegotiating the terms of the Ashford Accord, no longer as conqueror and conquered, but as two peoples who had stood together, however briefly, against something neither of them fully understood. Marcus remained aboard the Valiant, his old maintenance job forgotten, replaced instead by something he had never expected to become, the captain of Earth's last, and now most famous, battleship. Her crew grew slowly from 40 to 100, then to 200, veterans and volunteers, drawn by the story of a broken ship that had refused to stay silent. And late at night, when the corridors grew quiet and most of the crew slept, Marcus would still sit in the command center, talking with the ship the way he had that very first day, back when she had been nothing but flickering lights and a mystery he could not explain. Valiant, he thought one such night, staring out at the stars beyond the viewport. Do you think it will come back someday? Whatever left that piece of itself inside you? I do not know, the ship answered honestly. But I know this, Marcus. Whatever comes, whether it is that vessel again, or something else entirely, We will be ready for it. Not because we are the strongest ship in the stars. We are not. But because we are still here, still standing, when everything should have ended for us long ago. Marcus smiled, feeling the familiar, steady hum of the Valiant's engines beneath his feet. Engines that should not have started, on a ship that should not have survived, carrying a secret that neither of them fully understood yet. "That's good enough for me," he said quietly, and turned his gaze back to the endless dark beyond the stars, no longer afraid of what might be waiting out there. Because for the first time in 12 long years, Earth once again had a battleship willing to stand between its people and the dark. And somewhere deep within her hull, in a place no scanner could fully reach, something ancient and patient continued to wake, one quiet heartbeat at a time.